So, have you ever spent, say, 20 minutes right before falling asleep just vividly picturing this absolutely perfect outcome? Maybe you're imagining totally nailing a big presentation, or crossing the finish line of a marathon, or finally landing that ultimate dream job. You picture the performance, the result, all the smiling faces, and you come out of that visualization feeling just wonderful. But then a few weeks go by and you realize something incredibly frustrating. That wonderful feeling? Yeah, that was the only thing that actually happened. It's a phenomenon called the daydream tax. And today, in this explainer, we're going to look at why picturing a perfect result before you even start the work might actually be the exact thing holding you back. And more importantly, we'll dive into the rigorously tested science of what you absolutely should be doing instead.
We hear the standard advice everywhere, right? Just do more positive thinking. See it to be it. You're supposed to put the image on your vision board and feel it as if it's already a done deal. Well, here is the jarring reality that decades of research have actually uncovered. The more completely you experience that outcome in advance in your mind, the more your nervous system actually treats the job as partly done. You're basically getting all the psychological relief of success without having produced any actual result. And relief? That is the absolute last emotion you want to be practicing when you need drive and stamina. So I want you to ask yourself, what if the daydream that feels the most like motivation is quietly spending the very energy you are going to need to actually achieve the goal? Okay, let's really dive into this. To understand why positive visualization backfires on us, we have to look at the work of psychologist Gabrielle Oettingen. Her groundbreaking realization is this crucial distinction between expectations and fantasies. An expectation is a judgment. It's based on your actual history and hard work that a desired outcome is likely. It's grounded in reality. A fantasy, on the other hand, is an experience of that outcome enjoyed right now in the present, floating completely free of any judgment about whether it'll actually happen or what it's going to take. Now, emotionally, in the moment, they feel super similar, but behaviorally, they act completely differently. Confident expectations are excellent predictors of success. Indulgent fantasies, though, are a total trap.
Let's see how this plays out in the real world across completely different types of people. Oettingen and Meyer published a massive paper in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology back in 2002, and they didn't just look at one group. They followed four entirely different populations. We're talking graduating students looking for work, undergrads cramming for exams, single people looking for romance, and even patients recovering from hip surgery. They measured their effort and outcomes weeks to months later, and in some cases, up to 2 whole years later. And the pattern held across every single group. Positive expectations, meaning judging the desired future as likely because of past evidence, predicted higher effort and more successful performance. But positive fantasies? They predicted the exact reverse.
Across 4 different populations facing entirely different life challenges, the people who imagined the future most beautifully were, on average, the ones it happened to least. It's wild, right? It's just a stunning disruption to that popular idea of manifestation. When you merely imagine this beautiful future without grounding it, you are functionally telling your brain that you've already arrived. And that completely saps your motivation to do the grueling, unglamorous work required to actually get there. And honestly, this brilliantly illustrates that this is not some brand new phenomenon. We can see this exact effect all the way back in 1991. Oettingen and Thomas Wadden published a study in cognitive therapy and research where they followed 25 women through a rigorous year-long behavioral weight reduction program. And here's what they found. Optimistic expectations, believing they could actually do it, were absolutely vital. That expectation is what kept people showing up to the program week after week. But the actual weight loss, that was favored by optimistic expectations paired with negative fantasies. Visualizing the negative reality, the harsh obstacles, and the difficult moments, that was actually a crucial component to achieving the goal. Which brings us to the foundational framework introduced in 2001 by Oettingen, Pock, and Schneider. It's called fantasy realization theory. The active mechanism it prescribes is known as mental contrasting, and it is basically your new blueprint. First, you hold that wished-for outcome vividly in your mind. You are absolutely allowed the daydream. In fact, that part really matters. But then, immediately, you force a collision. You name the harsh, specific obstacle in your present reality that stands right between you and that dream. Holding both the beautiful wish and the ugly obstacle in your mind at the exact same time is what creates friction. And that cognitive friction is exactly what converts a free-floating, energy-draining wish into a binding, energizing goal. So how do we actually apply this in our daily lives? Well, it's been packaged into an incredibly actionable 4-step method known as WOOP. That's wish, outcome, obstacle, plan.
First, you define the wish. Second, you visualize the best outcome. Third, you identify the obstacle. And fourth, you create the plan. Now, what's really brilliant about this final step is that it isn't just some vague to-do list. It is specifically an if-then implementation intention. If the obstacle arises, then I will take the specific action. This is exactly why, in the academic literature, this whole technique is usually referred to as mental contrasting with implementation intentions.
Let's look at what happens when you apply WHOOP to physical behavior. In a 2009 study published in the American Journal of Preventive Medicine, researchers took 256 German women and split them into two groups. The first group just got your standard information about the benefits of exercise. The second group got that exact same info, plus they were taught the WHOOP procedure. The results? The WHOOP group successfully added roughly an extra hour of moderate to vigorous physical activity to their week. They essentially doubled the activity of the information-only group. And the coolest part is that this difference appeared immediately and held incredibly strong across the entire 16 weeks of the study. Now, look, as focused learners, we don't just blindly accept miracle cures around here. So here is the honest caveat. When you pool together every single trial of mental contrasting and WHOOP ever conducted, the effect is absolutely real, but it is modest. And importantly, it shrinks once you account for publication bias. You know, all those studies where the technique didn't work beautifully and therefore quietly vanished into a desk drawer somewhere. We always want to look at the data with our eyes wide open, totally stripping away the hype. So the crucial point we need to look at is this specific number, 0.242. Back in 2021, Wang, and Guy published a massive meta-analysis in Frontiers in Psychology. They looked at nearly 16,000 participants across 21 different studies. Initially, the overall effect size looked to be 0.336, which is small to moderate. But using statistical tools to account for that missing, unpublished data we just talked about, they pulled the true estimated effect size down to 0.242. It works, for sure, but it's not magic. And here's a totally fascinating moderator to keep in mind. When this intervention is taught face-to-face by a human, the effect size jumps up to 0.465. But when it's learned independently from a piece of paper or a screen, including this very explainer, it drops down to 0.277. How you learn this changes how effective it is, which should just encourage you to practice it that much more intentionally. Which brings us perfectly to your explicit action plan. Here are the precise rules of engagement for WHOOP. Step 1, name the wish in a single sentence. It's got to be demanding, but something you realistically believe you can actually do. High expectations are the active ingredient here, not the enemy. Step 2, take 20 or 30 seconds and actually indulge the best outcome. Vividly daydream it. This isn't a trick. The whole contrast requires the vivid positive version first. Step 3, and this is literally make or break, immediately name the obstacle inside you. Actually, let me repeat that. It must be internal. It cannot be the weather, or your boss, or your crazy schedule. It has to be your own state, habit, or reaction that stops you. Step 4, write the if-then plan. If that specific internal obstacle appears, then I will do this specific thing to overcome it. The science is absolutely clear on this. Indulging in the fantasy might make you feel really good today, but contrasting that fantasy against your internal reality is what actually gets things done tomorrow. So I want to leave you with a direct challenge right now to spark your own mental contrasting. What is the internal obstacle, the one inside you, not on your Google Calendar, standing in your way right now? Think about it and let us know down in the comments. If this explainer sharpened a distinction that you had previously been blurring, make sure you hit subscribe so you can join us for more rigorously corrected, data-driven insights. Thanks for learning with us today, and we'll see you next time.